There is probably no bodybuilder over the age of 25 who has not been inspired by Arnold Schwarzenegger at least once. This is no surprise, as he is the greatest bodybuilding icon in history. The 7-time winner of Mr. Olympia and, more importantly, the biggest bodybuilding promoter in the world. I don't know if anyone has done the research, but I think there are a lot of people in every corner of the globe who bought their first fitness pass after seeing Arnold play one of his legendary roles on the big screen. Many people who are not interested in bodybuilding would associate Schwarzenegger with the word muscle in a game of association, just as the mythical Hercules is the first thing that comes to mind when they hear the keyword strength. It is remarkable that one man has been able to achieve so much not only in sport, but also in show business and even in politics. Now that we have established for the nth time what a unique individual Arnold Schwarzenegger is, let's try to answer the question. How did he build up this mass? Arnold started training his body early as a teenager. It should be noted that he had a predisposition for it, because in photos from the time he was, let's say, junior high school age, you could already see broad shoulders and a relatively narrow waist. Back then, there was nothing to suggest that he would have the best physique in the history of the sport as an adult, although he always had a very good shape. Not only was his chest in the right shape, but practically all of his muscles, perhaps with the exception of his calves, seemed to be a gift of fate, which became apparent as soon as he started to put on more muscle mass. At the age of 18, he won Mr. Europe Junior and the following year Mr. Europe. He went on to win the Mr. Universe competition for amateurs and then the professional version. During this competition, Arnold's talent was recognized by one of the referees, who offered him the opportunity to train under his supervision in London. This decision not only enabled Arnold to develop his muscles, but also to broaden his horizons, as the stay in the UK allowed him to work on his English, which was not insignificant for the further development of his career.
Like it down there.
Let me be the judge of that. I'm tired of the same old faces, the same old things.
Like it down there.
Let me be the judge of that. I am tired of the same old faces, the same old things.
Whilst I had to describe Arnold's beginnings to outline how destined he was for bodybuilding, in this material we will not focus on every moment of Arnold's career, as this is more a topic that everyone is more or less familiar with. Instead, we will look for the answer to the question posed in the introduction. Above all, Arnold loved what he did. He put all his time and energy into bodybuilding. You'd think it wasn't such a big deal when he was making money from it. Who wouldn't want to train, eat and sleep and get paid for it, all surrounded by the beautiful nature of Los Angeles and Venice Beach? It seems like a dream come true, but professional sport isn't about going to the gym to relax and feel good, it's about hard work. Arnold also spent many hours in the gym every day, not to gossip with his colleagues, but to push himself to achieve his goal. When we talk about Arnold Schwarzenegger's mass, we have to refer to his physique from the year 1974, when he brought a record weight of 114 kilograms to the stage. In that year, Arnold dispelled the doubts of all those who thought that he did not deserve as much credit because of his lower parts as he received. Arnold's legs looked truly massive in 1974, and they didn't lack definition. Besides, you couldn't even criticize his calves because they looked really good too. To achieve the measurements he had in 1974, Arnold had to train solidly and hard, and since strength training is most important for building muscle mass, we will pay the most attention to this topic. At this point, I would like to point out something to some critics. Yes, doping is also important, and yes, we'll talk about that too, but if someone thinks it's the most important part of developing a physique, then they should think about why Arnold is the icon of bodybuilding and not some guy from the local gym who takes the stuff in kilograms. It's well known that Arnold split his training into 2 groups. The first included chest, back, legs, and forearms. The second, arms, shoulders, abs, and calves. He trained both groups alternately and completed a total of 6 strength training sessions per week, which means 3 training sessions per muscle group. In addition, he divided each group into a morning and an afternoon session, separating chest and back from legs and forearms. On the training day of the second group, he made a similar division and trained the shoulders and arms in the morning and the abdominal muscles and calves in the evening. Arnold spent around 5 hours in the gym every day for practically the whole week, and that's just one aspect of bodybuilding. This confirms how focused he was on his goal and how much he loved what he was doing. We've long known that Arnold's program was one of the most extensive, even when you look at other professional athletes. Dorian Yates or Mike Mentzer, for example, would probably have scratched their heads if they had seen this kind of plan. When it comes to the exact exercises Arnold performed, these vary depending on the source, which doesn't change the fact that the total number of sets he did per week is incredibly high, and in this case, all sources agree. To build up his legendary chest, he did up to 72 series a week for this part. I don't think you'll find a person like that even among the toughest of the tough representatives of the old school of bodybuilding. There were a lot of push exercises for the chest, but interestingly, not necessarily the classic exercises with a barbell on a flat bench, but rather with dumbbells or a barbell on a positive incline. One of Arnold's iconic exercises that engaged the chest were dumbbell flies on the horizontal bench. In its classic version, this exercise does not stretch the chest as well as you might think. This is because even with dumbbell presses, the elbows sink lower in relation to the torso than with flies. There are also limitations with this exercise in the form of unfavorable shoulder work and a limiter in the form of the biceps, which can become tired before the chest. Arnold trained his back with 63 sets per week, and here, without much invention, he favored rowing and pull-ups as standard, in other words, the best exercises for the back muscles. As for the legs, there was no room for compromise here either, and Arnold did solid 63 sets per week. His plan was dominated by different variations of squats, while his choice of calf exercises is interesting, as in addition to the classic toe raises, he also performed the now largely forgotten so-called donkey calf raises, which consisted of standing on your toes while bending forward with extra weight on your back. There is even a famous photo of one of Arnold's training sessions in which he is lifting his two training partners during this particular exercise. The other muscle groups could not complain about a lack of training volume either, as he trained each of them solidly. It is a fact that during the golden era, bodybuilders, not excluding Arnold, did not perform every set to muscle exhaustion, but rather one, or perhaps the last two. The high training volume was intended to overtrain the muscle and prepare it for the extreme effort of this 1 or 2 hard sets. It is also said that Arnold used this plan primarily in the preparation phase of a competition in order to burn more calories, while he reduced the volume a little in the mass phase. Whilst we are analyzing how Arnold built up such epic muscle mass, we should not overlook another key element: nutrition. It is well known what nutrition looked like in the 1970s. Bodybuilders generally tried to follow a clean diet, but knowledge on the subject was not yet very advanced, and so ideas such as mixing a protein shake with strong alcohol came along. However, if you were training right on the beach and cooling off quickly in the seawater after your workout, wouldn't you sit under an umbrella with an obligatory glass of protein shake and something stronger to loosen you up? These were the conditions under which Arnold sometimes trained. Besides, there was a completely different approach in the golden era of bodybuilding. Everything was more casual, buddy-like, which of course doesn't exclude hardcore training, of which Arnold is the best example. It's about a certain vibe of those times when bodybuilding was a job for the best, but also about having fun together. A way of life. You didn't necessarily have to pay attention to every last detail so that your training partner wasn't a little better than you in the competition because you had the same goal. Arnold followed quite simple principles in his diet. Make good choices in the kitchen that are suitable for a bodybuilder and pay attention to protein supply. He used a simple calculation: 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, which equates to about 240 grams of protein per day, which he consumed when he weighed 110 kilograms. 5 meals a day worked best for Arnold because, as he said, he was never one of those big eaters who could eat endless amounts of food, so he had to be sensible about his daily calorie intake. Speaking of calories, Arnold's calorie intake was over 5,000 a day in the mass periods. For breakfast, he liked to combine eggs with beef and various side dishes such as toast, and washed it all down with 2 glasses of milk. The following meals of the day consisted of various combinations of meat sandwiches, mainly beef, as well as eggs and cheese. Arnold didn't avoid protein shakes either, but interestingly, he drank a glass or 2 of milk with practically every meal. Nowadays, with widespread lactose intolerance, this seems almost impossible, but it obviously worked for Arnold. In addition, the concept of the reduction diet was not as common in the 1970s as it is today. Arnold admitted that you simply ate a little less during the preparation period for competitions, but the main tool for a deficit was to increase the training volume, which we have already mentioned before. Arnold simply believed that if he did 20 repetitions of a particular exercise, he could do 30 or 35 if he cut weight, and that's what he did. Since we've already talked about the nutrition of bodybuilding's greatest icon, it's worth saying a few words about the doping he took. During the golden era, the protocols were certainly not as extensive as they are today, which can be confirmed by the low number of side effects among the top athletes from Arnold's time. Gynecomastia was a marginal phenomenon, as was acne, and some of the athletes had really thick hair, which rules out hair loss due to testosterone abuse. Arnold himself admits that the most popular drug of his time was testosterone, of which he took at least 100 milligrams per week, and Dianabol, of which he took 3 tablets per day. From the point of view of the effects of doping, the doses that Arnold was taking seem absurdly low, and the amount of testosterone he was allegedly taking per week is more like replacement therapy than doping in the classic sense. It could be that Arnold really is a so-called hyper-responder and that his body responds excellently to even small amounts of supplements, but it could also be that Arnold is only revealing his record from the beginning of his career, for example, and is keeping quiet about the later ones. In any case, we can probably assume that these were not spectacular quantities, as he did not suffer any side effects. All the elements we have discussed make up the unit that was Arnold Schwarzenegger's muscle mass. It is no coincidence that we dedicate so much time to analyzing his musculature, because none other than him became the greatest icon of bodybuilding, the sport that brought us together on this channel. For many of us, Arnold has become a symbol of how bodybuilding has evolved over the years, and for others, what it should look like in general. I believe there is a large number of people who, if you put the best current athletes in the open category side by side with the Arnold Schwarzenegger of 1974, would without hesitation choose Arnold's physique as the perfect balance of proportions, muscle mass, and general aesthetics.